Alrighty, good afternoon. This is Dennis Miracle. Today I'm going to be making the Victoria bag, which you now see on the screen, and it is for the 6x10 hoop. And I also have a back panel that's available, an optional back panel that has the cross hatching. As you can probably barely see on here, it's just simply cross hatching, so that's available also. But I'm not making that. I'm making the bag itself, and just have a plain back. So anyhow, let me tell you the things that you need. You need a zipper, probably 12 to 14 inches long will do. If you want to put a strap on it to attach a strap, maybe a wristlet strap, you need a little connector, which I've just got a key ring that's been placed in a 3-inch piece of grosgrain ribbon, and the key ring placed in there, folded over and stapled at the top to hold it together. You're going to need some main fabric. For the front, you're going to need, as you can see here, we've got vinyl and a fabric. So you're going to need vinyl and fabric, or two fabrics or two vinyls for the front. And I'm going to be using, if I can get it here, I'm going to be using these two pieces of fabric, and they are cut 7 by 11. And as I said, this is a 6x10 hoop, 6x10 bag. You're going to need a piece of fabric for the back of the bag, which I'm going to use this same fabric. You're going to need 2 pieces of lining fabric, and all of these are cut 7 by 11. Here's my 2 pieces of lining fabric. You're going to need 2 pieces of batting, and I'm using some recycled pieces of, well, it was something I was using on the long arm, just playing with, testing the long arm out. And 1 piece is 7 by 11 and 1 piece is 6 by 11. So those are the items. Obviously you need, corresponding thread or complementary thread. And I think that's all you need. And so I'm going to go ahead and run the first step of the design, and I'll be right back. As you can see, I've ran, let me see, maybe you can't see. Let me turn on my light over here. Okay, and it's still not easy to see, but I ran the outline, the first step, which is the outline of the bag, and the placement for the zipper. And I'm going to take my zipper here, and there are 4 lines here. I hope you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4. Lines 1 and 4, if you will put your zipper, if it's a number 3 nylon zipper, it should fit perfectly right between those lines 1 and 4. Lines 2 and 3 are the exact lines that will stitch the zipper down. So if you're using some other kind of zipper or some other size, you can just know that these 2 lines here are where the zipper will be sewn down, so as a guide. So anyhow, let me place this right between, as I said, and I'm going to tape it down. And I'll put 1 small piece here right at the very edge at the top there. Okay, I'm going to then put this in the machine and run step 2, which will be the step that will sew the zipper down. So I'll be right back. All right, the zipper, as you may be able to see, has been sewn down. The thread is just about identical to the zipper itself, but it has been sewn down. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the fabric. Looking at this one that's already made, this is the fabric that we're going to be putting down first, as opposed to the vinyl. So grab whatever fabric you want to be in these two positions, this one and this one, and take it, let me get it. All right, it's going to be this pretty fabric here, and let me see that it is directional. So I'm going to, this is the correct orientation right here, so I'm just going to flip it up like that, and I'm going to place it right against the edge of the zipper itself, the bottom of the zipper, making sure I'm okay on both sides as far as being centered, the design being centered. So let me tape this all down, and okay, and I usually start off in the back first, but I didn't for some reason. I always turn it over to the back, and get your piece of lining, your first piece of lining fabric, and you're going to want to take, this is what I'm using for lining, you're going to want to take and place it face down, and it's got a notch out of the bottom here, screwed up cutting it, but you're going to take it and place it along this fourth edge to edge with this fourth line down, as you did basically on the front, although you could see the zipper on the front, and here you can't. So take and line your piece of fabric up, and let's tape it down. And like I say, I tape it in 3 places. Okay. All right, and now pick up your hoop and let the piece of lining fabric fall over to the front of the bag, and now take it and fold it over several times. Well, did it come loose? Oh, it did. Okay, let me retape. That's what I get for deviating from my doing the back piece first, which is the way I always do it. I don't know why I deviated today, but anyhow, that should be okay. All right, now take your fabric and fold it over several times, and tape it here to the frame of the hoop. I think you can see that there. I've taped it here to the frame of the hoop. And now take just leave this main fabric like this, and put this hoop in your machine now, and it will run a line of stitches right along here and sew both of these pieces down. So let's do that. Alrighty, first thing let's turn it over to the back of the hoop and make sure that the sewing is okay, which it is. It's fine. And now turn it back to the front, and it's fine also here. Now take your first piece of, not your first piece, but your smaller piece of batting. I told you to make 2 pieces of batting, one 6 by 11, one 7 by 11. Take your 6 by 11 piece and place it just right about 1/4 of an inch under the stitch line here, and then it fits nicely in the hoop. And take and pull back your main fabric and kind of pat it down, smooth it down. And I've got my iron on. I'm going to give it a second. I'm going to iron this to make sure it's nice and flat, and that there's a nice crease right here where it's pulled back. So let me do that, and I'll be right back. All right, my iron is hot, so I'm going to take and iron this so there's a nice crease along the top here, and I think that looks good. I'm going to now take the hoop and stick it back in the machine, and run step 4, which will basically go around all 4 sides, and kind of as a basting stitch, it will sew this piece and the batting down so it doesn't move. So let me do that, and I'll be right back. All right, I ran step 4, and it did as I said it would. It has sewn down these the fabric and the batting. So the next step, step 5, is going to we need to take and put our piece of fabric that would be this, whatever you're going to use for this fabric or vinyl here in this location. So let me take my piece of, let me see, there we are. And just cover it's cut 7 by 11. It should be big enough to cover all sides, and just place it right over what's already there and put that in the machine, and it's going to stitch 2 lines right here, about right here. So go ahead and do that, and I'll do it and be right back. All right, as you see, it did the 2 lines here, and next it's going to put a V shape, a small V. It's going to be this small V right here, and I guess I could have combined these two into one step, but I did not. I like leaving things separately. So anyhow, I'm going to put this back in the machine and run that step. So I'll be right back. All right, as you can see, that V has been placed there, and now I'm going to run the next step. Before I do trimming, I'm going to run the next step, which will place this larger V shape here, right through here where I'm pointing. So let me do that, and I'll be right back. All right, you see that the large V is now here, and what I'm going to do at this point is take my applique scissors, and I'm going to cut starting right off the side here. Boy, there wouldn't cut hot butter, I don't think. And I'm going to cut along this line here of stitches down through here, up and across, and just right over, right off. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to cut this on this lower part of this row of stitches. I'm going to trim as close as I can, and I'm going to be cutting off, just going right along through here and removing this piece here where I'm pointing. So when you're done, you're going to have this piece open where you can see the fabric underneath, and down here you'll be able to see the fabric just as you can see here. You're going to be able to see these areas when you trim it. So let me do that, and I'll be right back. All right, now you see what I was saying. Let me see, that needs a little more trimming. I'm not good at cutting. I mean, I don't know how many purses I've made with applique, probably 1,000, but I still don't cut as close as I should. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is stick this in the machine, and the applique will be run along this smaller V here to get rid of these raw edges, so they'll be covered. So let me do that. All right, you can see that the V has been, the satin stitch V has been placed, and now I'm going to run the next step, step 9, which will do the same satin stitching on this lower part of the V here. So let me do that, and I'll be back. All right, now you can see the pretty satin stitching has been run on this lower part of the V, and now I'm going to take it and put this back in the machine, and the beautiful stitching will occur right here in this center part. So, and then it'll stitch down here, and then I think finally right here. So there's 3 different steps for this, 1, 2, and 3, as I recall. So let me get started with, I'll stop in between each one. The next stitching will be in here, so I'll be right back. All right, you can see the stitching here. That was step number 10. Step number 11 is going to be the cross hatching. That's done here on this bottom, these 2 sections here where I'm pointing. And so I'll show you that after it's done. All right, 11 has been completed down here. You see this, it looks quite nice. And then the last quilting will be step 12, which will be right in here, more of this cross hatch, and this will just take a minute probably. Anyhow, I'll be right back. All right, you can see that 12 has been completed, which was the cross hatching in here. And now number 13 is just a straight row of satin stitching right along where I'm pointing, because you can see there's raw edges showing from this fabric, and it's going to just cover all of this right through here. So I'll put that in and I'll be back in a moment. All right, now you can see what a nice job that did. It covered all those raw edges, looks very good. Now, step number 14, we're going to finally release this piece of the lining fabric and let it fall back to the back of the design. And I had already, there were pieces of tape here on the side. I actually already removed those in an earlier step. I usually do it right now, but I'd already removed those. So take and pull this down tautly and take your tape and tape it down here on the corners right there and right over here. Okay, and now also while we're at it, let's get rid of this stabilizer behind the zipper. So I use paper towels, so it makes it very easy to do this. I just use my fingernail on my thumb and tear it off. And there's that. Okay, so now we're going to do the stitching here, which will sew down this piece of lining. So let me do that and I'll be right back. All right, now we're going to remove the tape up here in the corner that originally held the zipper down and get rid of it. And we're going to open up the zipper. What's that right there? Yeah, get rid of that too. Open up the zipper about 3/4 of the way. There we are, that should be fine. And we're going to take our little piece that we've made for a little connector point for a wristlet, and we're going to take and tape that down. Okay, and make sure you tape the piece of metal down, because that often will get in the way and cause a problem. So that should be fine, and you can see this is where the presser foot will be going over this area here for about the 5th time, or I'm not sure how many, but it's going to go, and it's going to go right across here, so you can see that the staple is way out of the path of the presser foot and also the metal ring. So anyhow, we've got the zipper open, which is extremely important. We've placed the connector. Now let's take our piece of back fabric, which I'm just going to use this as my back fabric, and place it over what's already here. And make sure you are at least 1/4 inch, the fabric is at least 1/4 inch above the zipper. So you see the zipper, and I can tell that's at least 1/4 inch above it. And take your last piece of batting and place the batting over that like this and press it down, and then stick this in your machine and run step 15, and I'll do that and be right back. All right, now we're up to the last step, step 16. Turn your hoop over to the back side and take your last piece of lining fabric, and let me see, place it face down and just cover what's already there as before, and make sure again you are about 1/4 inch above this. Well, the top line here would be where the zipper is on the front, so make sure you're 1/4 inch above that. Make sure you're spaced out evenly on the sides, and okay, I think we're fine. And then tape that down in all 4 corners. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, and stick this back in the machine, and let's run step 16, which will end the sewing. So let me do that. All right, all the sewing has been completed, and we're going to remove this from the hoop. So loosen your hoop up, take your frame apart, the two pieces. I always check to make sure there's no tape left on them, and there isn't. So these are good. Okay, I always cut from the lining side, from the lining side of the fabric. So start here and go in at an angle, and then turn your scissors and just follow the stitch line up about 1/8 of an inch or so away from the, to 1/4 of an inch away from the stitch line. Alrighty. I always cut like that, cut at an angle there at the corner, and then continue on down. Alright. And then come around this last corner here and stop where the stitching stops and go in again from an angle and cut. And there we are. Let me see, that left a little bit of, okay. Okay, come on. Come on out of there. All right. Okay. Now you see, well, that's kind of a mess, but pull back your two pieces of lining. That's what you should see on this side. Here's the first piece, here's the second piece, and then take your scissors and just cut all of this remaining fabric and stabilizer, etc., about as close as you can get without cutting into the lining itself. So just take your time and do this. All right. Okay, there's that. And now we're going to turn our bag through the gap here. Let me turn on my iron while I'm thinking of it. Okay. Okay. So, all right. Let me see. Now, just take and flatten it out, and we're going to take the iron as soon as it heats up, and we're going to give it a good press. Oh, that's ugly. Boy, what a mess I made cutting that. I don't know what I was doing or thinking. Obviously, I wasn't thinking. Anyhow, all right, my iron should be hot enough. Let me take and give this a little press. All righty. Now take, on both sides you can see the lining now that you've turned the bag out. So take the shorter piece of lining and just turn it in and give it a good press. All right. And then turn the longer piece of lining and turn it in, and make sure these little tabs here go off to the side and I push them towards the side of the bag. And so, okay. All right, okay. Now take and, oh, there's a piece of tape on my finger. If you can, okay. Now take your iron and iron that down. Okay. And then go over to your sewing machine and take and stitch right at the very edge, right up a 1/16 or so away from the edge of this piece of lining here, this first piece that you're looking at first, and stitch this area closed from right here where my finger is pointing all the way over to here. So do that and I'll be back in a moment. All right, now take your snippers and snip this threads off here. There's always threads on the beginning and ending, of course, of the sewing. And let's see, this is all closed and nice here. And then take and remove that piece of tape that was holding the key ring down and open your, let me see, open your zipper as wide as it'll go. And then just reach in and turn the bag out. Okay. 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 All right, now turning over to the front here, take your, just kind of take your fingers and turn the zipper the way it should be in towards, as you see I'm doing, and give it a little help there so it'll lay nicely. And go ahead and shut it. You see. All right. Okay, that shuts nicely. And take your pressing cloth and put it over it. And now that my iron's heated up, I'm going to give it a good press. I'm not consistent with using this ironing cloth. Sometimes I just iron right over it, and of course not if you have vinyl. That would be the end of the vinyl. But anyhow, let's look at that. That looks good. Turn it over, and let's, I'm not going to use the ironing cloth on this. I'm just going to go at it. And okay, I think that looks good. Let's turn it back over. And I think that looks great. That's the Victoria bag. So I hope you've enjoyed watching me make this. The next bag coming up is the Angelique bag. And if you were around in the 1960s, you know where that reference to Angelique comes from. But anyhow, so I'm going to, I appreciate it once more. Appreciate you all watching me. And if you decide to obtain this pattern, I hope you make something beautiful for yourself or a family, friend, or loved one. And also, as I said, I do have a backing, which is just this. I don't have a backing with these flowers. No one has requested that, but I do have a backing of this cross-hatching, which would have made this look nicer, but I just didn't want to take the time to do it. Lazy me. Anyhow, thank you so much, and I always take time to thank those who keep encouraging me and supporting me. You don't know how much that means to me. It just is so important, and I appreciate it. And anyhow, I'll be back later this week or this coming week with the Angelique bag to demonstrate making it. So thank you and have a great holiday. It's tomorrow's Christmas Eve. Hope you all have a healthy and happy Christmas and or whatever holiday, or if you don't practice any holiday, that's okay too. But I hope that you'll be well. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.